The Her Business by Design podcast is for female business owners looking for inspiration and ideas on how they can elevate their leadership and level up their business and profits. We explore all aspects of business ownership with a particular focus on empowering women to be strong leaders by providing them with the knowledge to cultivate a positive and productive business culture. So join us, Elaine Richards and Tamara Lloyd, founders of Business by Design Duo, for inspired chats with our favourite female business owners to uncover their journey, tips and ideas to help you in business.
Hello Tamara, welcome back. It's lovely to see you again.
Fantastic to see you too, Elaine. Great to be here. We've got a lovely day here in Melbourne, so it's nice to be actually in a t-shirt today rather than in, the
winter woolies.
Yeah.
And hello to our listeners. I hope you're all well. And it's absolutely brilliant weather. Spring has sprung.
Yes. And it makes us so much happier when we have some sunshine.
I don't want to put a dampener on it, but I think the rains are coming this afternoon. Yeah. I think it's going to drop from 22 to 14, so I'm not looking forward to that.
That's Melbourne for you.
It is. 4 seasons in one day. Yeah. Today we're going to have a discussion around change, something that's probably not on the top of the list of the most favourite thing for people to have to endure, but we're going to jump in and discuss how best to manage change in your business to minimise stress and maximise productivity or positivity, I should say.
Yes, well, I think, some people love change or embrace it better than others. Other people, it puts them into a cold sweat.
Yes.
And I know obviously I'm sure we can all think of people that love change and embrace it and get all excited by something new, whereas others, freak out and say, why change something when it's working? So it's, in a business sense, it can be challenging when you've got lots of different personalities to make big changes. There might be little changes you make along the way, but big changes, which I guess is probably more what we're talking about today, are the ones that are a bit more challenging.
And look, knowing you, Tamara, you're all about change, or we are all about change and moving with the times. And I think if you don't implement change inside a business, you can become stagnant and you can be left behind. And I think there's a way to go about it. And there's certainly business owners out there that would probably prefer not to make change. And they're the ones that are going to be left behind. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's right. It's understanding that, and I think, the biggest changes we would make in our business, whether it's the business we have now with the Business by Design Duo, or whether it was when we had a real estate business, probably the biggest things that we would change were technology, because we're always looking at what things we can use to make our lives or our staff lives easier in the long run. But obviously there's usually a bit of pain before you get the good bits.
Yes.
And also I think transparency has become a big thing with customers. They like that transparency. It doesn't really matter what industry you're in. So technology can definitely help with transparency and having customers be able to log in and look at their own information or update things themselves, etc. So, and also just providing them with timely information, or where you can be able to gather more data, I guess, to help you make better decisions. So there's so many reasons why you might, implement new apps or technology, etc. So that's probably a big one that comes to mind for me. But change isn't necessarily technology, I guess. It can be lots of other things as well.
Well, I do think we are living in a very tech-savvy world, and I think looking at our business that we did over the years implement a lot of new technology, but we had to. And I think the job that we had as, certainly in our property management department, we were very, there was a lot of things that we needed to tick off, and there was a lot of wheels in motion, and we had to make sure we didn't miss them. So I think in when you're managing portfolios, it can be quite overwhelming for your staff. So we were always looking at ways that we could implement a process that would take or would be less stressful, but it was efficient and that it would allow
less risk.
absolutely risk. But then the flip side of that is it does create the now, and the, you know, for our clients, you know, if they need something, they need it now. Or, you know, like I'm thinking SMS messages, or, you know, pushing out reports instantaneously after you've done them online. So I think you've got to sell it to your team in the right way, so that they embrace it and love it and understand the end goal, I suppose, for your business and for your team. So,
and I think the other thing that has changed a lot more on the sales side of things, and within most businesses is some sort of sales aspect to their business, is being able to provide you with the information of who hasn't transacted with you but started, you know, the process but didn't fully go through it, so that you can try and capture those people, or people that are looking to make a decision, and you find out about that potentially through technology before it happens with all the AI these days. You know, there's a lot of analytics and things available that you can help grow your business if you're changing with the times. But as I said, it's not necessarily technology that we're talking about today, but I guess when we've sort of set out, we're going to go through a few suggested, a bit of a timeline on how we would do things. I think keeping technology in mind is a good one for how to do it, and you know, but there's certainly other things that you might change, like processes, or, you know, how you might greet customers. It can be, you know, lots of different things that you want to change within your business at any one time, or bring in new people. That can be a big change too, a new management,
yes,
or a new team leader, or, you know, things that are going to affect people that may not be tech related.
Well, that's quite overwhelming for your staff, and they think, oh, well, I don't want to have change. I like things how they are. And you know what it could be? Just as simple as the layout of your office. Like we've obviously moved our business, you know, as we've grown, we've worked and tried to have the best setup inside our business. Sometimes we've had to take that outside and you know, obviously look at an off-site office for our property management. So, you know, people don't necessarily like that, and they might not necessarily embrace it. So obviously you have to be mindful of that. But I think starting at the top and working our way through is obviously researching what it is that you want to implement through your business, and make sure you do a lot of research. And whether you speak to, I know we used to go and speak to other offices that might have had as an example, technology, not that we want to bang on about it all the time, but we might have asked how they've found that that system inside their business, the pros and the cons, and really make sure you know your pros and cons before you go and jump into anything. I think if the risk is too great, if it's not polished, or it's not, I mean, over the time we looked at systems that we didn't really feel were ready. So we said no, and we would sit and wait and then look at the options again in 6 months.
Yeah, I think it depends on the size of your business. And I think the other thing it might be, I know that we talk to often other business owners about, was the setup of departments in terms of how their team was set up. And we changed a few times as we grew how our team was set up and how properties were managed. I mean, in any sort of business, they're the sorts of things that you might change as well, a structural change, and going and talking to some other people that are in a similar industry, the same industry as you, and how they do things, and looking at all options. I think just don't go, okay, well, you know, there's a bit of a fad on this software or this setup. Go and explore what the other options are.
Yes. Don't
just be stuck on one, like be open-minded when you do your research.
And depending on where you go and get that information from, they might have more, as an example for us, more properties under management, or a different flow of the business. And like you said, originally we weren't in a pod system, but a lot of offices were. But that wasn't necessarily the fit for us, given the team that we had at the time and the capability of doing that. But also, just because they might be passionate about it and love it, it may not necessarily be the right fit for our business.
Yeah, and it's got to suit your culture, I guess. So, and everything does come back to culture in the end. And for us, culture was about customer service, quality service, and a happy team. So it kind of needed to fit with that, whatever we did.
And I think we were very passionate about the customer care, whereas a lot of offices might have been, or businesses might have been, more about the dollar. Like we were in the growth phase, but also we were top heavy in our departments for staff. So, you know, we're very different in our own unique ways, and that's okay, but do your research and make sure that the software or the change or whatever it is, that you are 100% looking at every avenue of that,
100%.
And do a risk assessment on it and look at the cost. Obviously, the cost is a big thing to be mindful of.
And I think the other thing is if it is software or something like that, what is the support that you're going to get with it? I think that's a massive one. I know we've made decisions to go or not to go based on the information we got from other businesses around the support that we were going to receive from that particular company. And that is a massive one when you're implementing change, because you need that support. If you're going with a new software or app or something like that, you will need really good quality support to roll it out well. Yeah, support training. Yeah. So I think, once you've you're clear on which path you want to take, I think the next thing is to test it in a small way in your business so that you can try and streamline as much as possible, or iron out any little issues that you come across, or be able to answer any questions. And I know, and I will use the technology example here, because when we were bringing in new tech, we would pick someone to give it a go. And for us, we had a guy on our business called Dennis, and he was really tech savvy, and he would ask a lot of questions, and which was great, because by the time we then rolled it out to the team, we'd kind of answered most of the questions. So we'd get him to use it, test it, play with it, give us the feedback, good and bad, that he found using it, and then from there sit down with him and kind of go through it. And then we could go back to the provider of the software in this situation and say, look, these are the questions we have, or this doesn't seem to be working properly, and they could tell us what they were doing to fix it, or how we could use it better, or whatever. So I think testing it, or it might be if it's a process, if we were implementing a new process, we might just test it on with one person in the office and get them to try that new process, and just then iron out again any little things along the way, so that by the time we rolled out to the whole team, it was as close to perfect as it could be.
I think for business owners too, we're not the ones in the thick of it. So, day in, day out, like Dennis, he was the one that was doing the task at hand in that situation, and he was very good at that. And then I think the next part of that is that if you're selling it to your team, he's across it and he's very pro it, and everyone will be like, well, if he's doing it and he does it, everything he did in our business, like around technology, he did exceptionally well. So they're more inclined to embrace that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And it needs to be, and I think one of the things that one of the next things that we look at, I'm not sure, picking a key staff member to promote that or sell it within the team. Now, probably it's going to be the person that you've tested it on, but not necessarily, and I would say not necessarily a manager. Also, you need someone that's on the ground using that software or using that system, that process within your business that people respect, for whatever that change will be, I think as your cheerleader.
Yes.
Not necessarily a senior manager that's not using it all the time.
But also picking your mark on who is okay and comfortable to step outside their comfort zone, because some people will just be like, whoa, I'm not doing that. So I'm happy how I am, just plodding along, old school. It's like maybe a diary. I have a handwritten diary, as compared to using a diary in your computer or your laptop, or it's just changed. People are so set in their ways.
Yeah, so you do need, I feel it's good if possible to have someone that's a cheerleader.
Yeah.
For once you've let them test it and all the rest of it, and then that will help you. I think then you need to start talking about the change to your team. So I would suggest, without rolling it out, so what we tended to find was there'd be a few whispers around if we're looking at new software or looking at changing a process, because maybe there'd been a few complaints, or maybe there'd been some issues, so we're looking at changing things. So word would get out if we were looking to change something, particularly if it was something big like, your CRM or something like that. So I think as the business owner, you should control that narrative. You shouldn't let, the gossip go through the office. So I would suggest just saying to the team, look, we are looking at changing, for instance, our CRM. We are in the process of putting a plan together and making sure we choose the right software. So within the next month, we're going to sit down with you and roll out what it is that we've chosen and why we're looking to do it. Obviously, we want to improve what we're doing. and also then a timeline for the rollout. So don't be stressed about it. We've got it in hand, and but just kind of put it out there. It also gives them time to let it marinate in their brain a bit, so that because in my experience, if you tell someone, here's a big change, we're changing our CRM and this is the timeline and here's how we're going to do it, they're so focused on what we're changing that they're not focused on the how you're going to do it. So I feel that, and again, it depends on what it is, but I think with something like that, we're looking at getting a head of department for this division. So we're in the process of, doing, looking at who we're looking for, what their job description is going to be, rather than them just one day turning up and there's a new head of department there, Yeah. So start to talk about these things earlier so they feel a bit more like part of the process. They can ask questions, and they're a bit more comfortable with it when it does, when you do roll it out.
I think you mentioned it earlier, the why. Why is it? Why is it we're looking for a new head of department, and really laying out and explaining to your team the benefits for them, I think will allow them to digest it a bit better and to embrace the change when it comes. But obviously the last thing you want is negativity in your business, and that's the first thing that people jump to. Oh, well, that's not going to work, or, I'm not okay about that, and why are we changing it? There's no need, or, and that's just natural. I think we all do that, but I think it's really important to lay it out to your team and then give them a timeline, I suppose, on how it's going to look and the process, and also the support that we're going to offer the team, and letting them know that we've done a lot of research around why and which product's best for us, or why we're doing this change.
And I think that discussion, so when after you've sort of let the team know about it, I would then, let them know, let them think, and then go away, put the plan together, timeline, work out the training, who's responsible. I think you need to have, like,
very
for us,
clear.
It was usually our office manager would take responsibility for rolling out a new process. And I think the other thing is, when you're telling the team or the department about a new process or new software, or whatever that change is, try and get them all there at once, because we've found that they tend to have questions, and if one person's got the question, someone else has probably got it, and then you can answer those questions while they're all together, because otherwise people go away. One finds that you tell one person about it, then they gossip about it to the next person, they get it kind of half wrong, and then
Chinese whispers.
Yeah. So I think, if you're doing changes, particularly big changes in the business, get all the team together, and then when you roll out the plan, again, get all the team together, roll out the plan, the timeline, and then whoever's managing that process should put it in, diarise it in their diaries. We would have, I think most organisations have it these days, where you're obviously using a calendar online, and you can just invite them. So, video training, or John Smith coming in to do, training on this topic, and, so everyone knows it's in their calendar. And if they have to do any research or reading or watch any videos, when do they have to do those by? And just keep gently reminding them these are the things, because it's going to make their life easier. And don't try and rush it. I think that's the other thing. When you do work at that timeline, have it in, like, don't put two people under too much pressure, because they've already got their other work that they're doing. So have a timeline that's reasonable based on everyone's workload.
I know we did bring in paperless in our office as well. That was a big change.
That was big.
And I think it was it was good. I don't know, was it around COVID or pre-COVID?
We started doing it pre-COVID, thank goodness.
But I think we put a timeline on that. By the 1st of July the next year, we would be 100% paperless.
That was six we gave ourselves just over 6 months, I think, to do that. That was a pretty big change.
It was a massive change, because in a real estate office, everything's files. Like, there's files for every property. There was a landlord file, there was a tenant file, and
sales file, a purchase.
But you have to keep everything for so long as well. So we then obviously
scanned it all.
But we would constantly go back and check in on the progress, and were we hitting our targets to be completely paperless come July 1. So that was a massive task. But in the end, I think everyone knew, and we would remind the team regularly, this is the process. Has anyone got any questions? Is anyone struggling? And obviously then making sure your team are all together so that they're getting the same repetitive message over and over. Yeah.
And if you can't get them together in person, just do a Zoom or a Google Meet or whatever, and get everyone together that way to go through something. If it's a problem. And I think COVID was probably a blessing for people going paperless, and I think that's often the thing with technology. If you can kind of get in earlier-ish, not necessarily being the first one, because you kind of want it tested, but if you can get in early-ish, you will benefit from it later. I think because you'll be up and running when other people are just starting to catch up.
And usually if it is a tech change that you're doing, they are going to be so supportive to you and your business because they want it to succeed.
The software company, yeah, 100%.
Because then they can roll it out and use you as a support and a raving fan, so to speak, for other businesses. But
and take advantage of that. Like if you're newer, if they're a newer technology or take advantage of the fact that they really want to please you.
Yeah.
As in, from a financial point of view, trying to get the best deal and trying to get extra help and, all that.
I think too it's important to put it if you're having a group session and a meeting and there's a lot of questions and you're like, okay, there's some miscommunication here, I think it's also good as a leader to follow it up or get your manager to follow it up in writing for the team so that they can then clearly understand it step by step.
100%.
So I think definitely need to consider that. So we've done the test.
Yes.
We've rolled it out. Stick it to your plan. I think that's really, really important. And don't go backwards. Don't have the negativity creeping in because you will find that will happen because it does take some staff longer than others to embrace it, to be on board. So I think...
And offer some one-on-one for those people. You probably know the people are going to need a bit more one-on-one training, even if they do group training. Everyone learns differently. So if you set yourself up for success, offer group training on things well as doing some one-on-one.
But buddy two people up in the office and have them sit together and or whatever it is, go out to the, whether it's something you're doing, on an iPad software-wise, you're going out to a property or whatever, do it together, and I think in time they will then come to the party, and I think it'll be rolled out successfully throughout your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just reviewing, those issues as they come along, or maybe it's a matter of having again, it depends what it is, but it doesn't hurt also to say, okay, we've done this rollout, we're coming together a week later or a day later or 2 days later to go through any sort of issues that you're having. So bring all your challenges. We're going to do this in a constructive way. It's not a complain whinge session. And then go through all the issues, have someone there that kind of knows what they're doing. Might be someone from software company or, it might be you, the owner, that has the answers to the process, whatever, and then just go through and clarify and answer all those concerns or fix all those concerns in a group setting so that everyone can then move forward. Because there are going to be hiccups. And I think just knowing and admitting that there's going to be some hiccups along the way, we promise you we'll sort of deal with them in a timely fashion so that everyone can just keep moving forward.
And when we've had new head of departments come in, we would obviously catch up with them once a week, twice a week, see how they're travelling, how the team have embraced that. Then we'd also possibly check in with, some of the other people in that department and get some feedback from them. And, we'd nip in the bud any little niggly issues because obviously sometimes in that scenario people flex their muscles a little bit and they're very quick to say, well, that's not how we do things. So I think you need to support in particular.
My least favourite saying, that's not how we do things here. My least favourite saying.
But I think you've got to be mindful of those sorts of situations. Otherwise it can turn south very quickly and that's not what you want.
No,
so
100%.
I think you've really got to have your finger on the pulse and you've got to be in touch and present in your business and make sure you're talking to your team, making sure that
checking in,
absolutely, that they're happy, but they also know that you're very pro it, and then if need be go back to them and say, well, remember, this is why we're doing it. We're doing it to help you to have greater success for our customers, to allow you to have more time. And then I think it's just over the weeks or the months or whatever it is you're rolling it out, then I think the penny will drop.
Yeah. And I think once you've got the acceptance that this is happening, they've got to jump on the bus because it's not.
It's a non-negotiable.
Yeah. Well, depending what it is, if it's new software, the other software's gone. Like there's no going back. So they need to learn it. So that they will eventually get on the bus. I think the big thing after you've sort of rolled it out is then to actually go through and review how that rollout went with the key people. So it might be the business owners or partners and the person that was responsible for the rollout and anyone else within the business that you think, will give you some valuable feedback. You want constructive criticism as well, because the next time you go to roll something out, you'll have learnt from that and go, look, we got it 80% right this time. There's a couple of little things we would tweak next time we implemented a massive change like this. And then and that's how you improve. And I think in the end, we absolutely did not get it right from the start. But in the end, whenever we would implement change, the team were just accepting that this was part of our culture, that we would continue to change and improve, and that we would have a plan, and they were confident in us that we would roll it out, and they would have the opportunity for training and questions. And so they just accepted it and trusted that we knew the process. But it wasn't like that from day one. They learnt to trust because of past experience. And I think this is what will happen within any business. If you do it well, or you keep improving and you keep checking in with your staff, they will then trust you more and more next time you do something similar.
And I think they'd probably get excited by it, because knowing our
more
team,
excited maybe than
yes, more excited over the time. But they would also embrace it, and because we were usually the first to do things in our industry, so I kind of think that the team, they weren't bored because we were always moving and pivoting. Some of the times though, they were like, oh, not again. But I think, they embraced it across the board.
They knew there was a reason for it. Every time there was change, it wasn't change for the sake of change, because as a business owner, you would know there are so many people that call your business, email your business, text you, whatever, trying to get you to try their product or service or whatever. You get a bit over it. But look, there are sometimes things that go, oh, that actually sounds interesting. So sometimes you've got to have that headspace. That's the working on your business part of it, to have an open mind to new things, and sometimes to go, actually, that could be interesting. And it may not be that you go with that particular product, service, whatever, but it might start you on an investigation on how or maybe other products or services in that field. So,
yes.
So I think that kind of sums up. I think the biggest change, though, that we ever had to implement was probably the most difficult one. Are you happy for me to share?
Yeah, and it was probably the most overwhelming one for you and I, and something we struggled with the most in our 10 and a half years in business together.
So when we actually sold the business, we couldn't tell the team because it wasn't unconditional, and we knew it was in the works for some time, but with finance and all those sort of things these days, everything's, you just never know 100%. So we really had to keep it to ourselves. So we weren't able to do the usual kind of rollout. So we had to go pretty much from do the deal to really, really have a plan, a clear plan on how we were going to roll it out to the team, because for us, we knew a lot of the staff had been working with us for 10 years or more. Yeah. One of them had been, I'd bought the business off, and we'd been sort of in business together for 13 years. So it was going to be really difficult emotionally, as well as people being scared of whether they're going to have their jobs and things like that. So that was part of it. But the other part of it was that we really wanted the new people that were buying the business to have every success that they could have and be able to retain that team that we'd built up and the culture and all that. So we had these two things that we really wanted to protect. So we had a really, really clear plan down to a timeline of, during the meeting, because we had to roll out, this is what's happened and this is the timeline all at once. So it was a big shock for people.
It did get pushed out because the settlement was dragged out. Yeah. So we were like, we're doing it today, and we were so nervous about delivering this news.
And then the finance didn't come through.
And then it didn't happen, and we're like, oh my God. And it was the worst feeling. I felt like I was being deceiving and I was lying, and it was something I struggled with, as did you. But when we got there,
we had a really clear plan from the minute of, okay, so we're going to roll this out. That's going to take about 15 minutes or however long.
Yes.
Then we'll get the new business owners to come into the office.
Same day.
At the same time, in the same meeting, we text them and said, okay, come across now. So we literally had it all planned out by the minute. And
can I go back a step? We did also bring in our main leaders in our business and shared that with them first.
Yes, the day before.
And that was the start of the process.
Yeah,
and we wanted to do that because we wanted them to be a sounding board to the other staff when they were notified. Yeah. And we wanted them to be pro the news and the change, which they were. Obviously, it was a very big shock. Yeah. It was a big shock because we had created that fantastic culture inside our business, and it was like a family network. So it was very overwhelming. And I know, obviously, I think I'm probably more emotional than you, but once we delivered that, a lot of the staff were in shock, but they were emotional.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was a long time that we had to spend with them through this process. But then when the new owners came in, they obviously weren't there for a too longer period, but they did obviously want to introduce themselves and ease their mind. And I think it worked
as well as it could have. And the other thing that we did, which was a bit more planned, so this is when you're planning things to actually really plan, was one of the business owners, we knew that this was probably going to happen. We got him in a few months before to do a training session with the team to kind of get the feel for the team and them to go, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
So it wasn't such a shock. And he then spent a couple of months, he would touch base with people for different reasons or find excuses to do it just to start building rapport. So it was very well thought out. Nothing was really an accident. And it was very challenging, but I think we could not have handled any better. And to this day, I'd say 95% of the staff are still there. So that was, and I think the owners are happy with the business and all that. So I think we handled it well, but that is one of the most challenging change managements we've had to do, down to the little easy ones where it's a slight change in process.
Yeah, I'll tap that any day.
So anyway, hopefully that gives people a bit of an insight into how they can maybe manage change better or improve their processes for it, or just give them the courage to make that big change. Because usually I would say there really weren't any changes that we ever made that we regretted later. They're always positive in the long run.
And I think your business is going to improve. Your staff are going to stay, and your retention's going to improve because you are constantly working at improving yourselves, your business and your staff. So I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that was a lovely, enjoyable chat.
Yes, great to talk about change. It's something that I don't mind, but not everyone loves. So
we do have a blog that you've just written, which our listeners can find on our website.
businessbydesignduo.com.au/blog.
And also a free download on the customer journey, which is probably a little bit relevant to what we're talking about. So they can also find that online.
Yeah, that's under the business resources tab on our website. So and there's a few other free downloads there. So if anyone's sort of interested in having a look at those, jump on and have a look. And
if there's a topic you'd like us to discuss or
a guest speaker,
absolutely, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on our podcast, any pros and cons. So
absolutely.
Have a lovely day. See you soon, Tam.
See you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in, and congratulations on getting to the end. If you loved this episode, why don't you hit the subscribe button, share this podcast with a friend, and leave a review. Reviews and referrals are the best way to help a small business. If you are interested in downloading any of our free business resources, go to businessbydesignduo.com.au and click on the Business Resources tab. We're Elaine and Tamara, and we can't wait to have you back for our next episode. You can connect with us on socials, Business by Design Duo, or go to our website, businessbydesignduo.com.au. Have an amazing day.